Acknowledged as one of the most romantic of all composers who ever lived, Robert Schumann and his life story are plagued with extreme contrasts. A deeply troubled soul, his journey of ups and downs would lead him to combine two fine art disciplines into one. Through his work, we grasp his combination of both literary and musical composition, all within an encompassing fervor of emotion, opinion, and dedication. Born the youngest of 5 children to Johanna and August Schumann, the family was cultured and educated. About August Schumann, Robert's father, it was written. He was a bookseller and a writer of poetic imagination, shrewd and critical. He was a man with the urge both to raise the standards of art and broaden the base of its reputation, and with the practical ability to mold this vision into reality. Such characteristics, central to Robert Schumann's creative personality, had already manifested themselves in his father. Schumann's father died when the boy was only 16 years old. Prior to that, his father made sure that he had literature surrounding all of his children. Robert, even in his early teenage years, was familiar with the writings of the German poet-philosophers Friedrich Schiller and Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, as well as Brian and the Greek tragedians. His most powerful and permanent literary inspiration was Jean Paul, whose influence was seen in Schumann's youthful novels, those of which he composed himself, completing these early literary works in 1826 at the age of 16. Upon the prompting of his father, who voiced his wishes before he died, Robert became a law student in Leipzig, but never enjoyed classes. After hearing the virtuoso violinist Paganini perform in 1830, he decided to take his music a bit more seriously. He began studying in Leipzig with piano teacher and performer Friedrich Wieck, who promised that should the student have faith, he would become a concert pianist. However, Schumann damaged his hand and devoted the rest of his life to composing. With his first 21 opus for solo piano, he did eventually compose in other genres. His oeuvre contains works for piano and orchestra, many songs for voice and piano, 4 symphonies, an opera, and other orchestral, choral, and chamber works. In 1834, and at the age of 24, Schumann began the journal Die Neue Zeitschrift für Musik, one of the most important musical periodicals of the century. In its pages, Schumann championed the composers he favored and helped shape the tastes of a new generation. 2 such composers who benefited greatly from Schumann's insistency of educating the masses were Felix Mendelssohn and Johannes Brahms. These 2 composers continued great friendships with Schumann throughout his difficult life, with Mendelssohn even offering him a professorship at the Leipzig Conservatory, while Brahms was ever devoted to the care of Schumann's family throughout Schumann's severe sickness and death in 1856. In celebrating Schumann tonight, we must also consider those around him. Here, as a representation of the musical scene prior to and after the height of Schumann's work, are 2 solo piano pieces. These small, gem-like piano works fit into the category popular in the Romantic era, that of the character piece. The titles for most of these pieces reflect their romantic nature: intermezzi, impromptus, romances, fantasies, nocturnes, arabesques, and album leaves. Tonight's pianist can think of no better offering than Felix Mendelssohn's Song Without Words, Opus 30 in F-sharp minor, and Johannes Brahms's Intermezzo in A major, Opus 118, No. 2, to open this evening's concert. It was also in 1834 that Schumann's friendship with his piano instructor Friedrich Wieck's daughter, Clara, progressed to love. An enormously talented performer and composer in her own right, Clara became Robert's wife only after a prolonged legal struggle with her father in 1840. We will hear more about this relationship on the second half of tonight's program. Although the character pieces stands out clearly as the most important single genre in Schumann's music, he was nevertheless a remarkably accomplished composer of large-scale works. Tonight's Sonata No. 1 for piano and violin in A minor, Opus 105, showcases that talent. The origin of Schumann's first violin sonata can be followed in Clara Schumann's diary. The year was 1851. September 15th.
Robert is working away on something new. I can't get him to tell me what, but I have the feeling that it's a piece for piano and violin. Am I right?
September 25th.
I have finally seen Robert's new sonata and am thoroughly delighted by it. I am extraordinarily enchanted by the entire character of the sonata and can hardly wait to play it.
And after the first rehearsal on October 16th, she wrote,
I simply could find no peace and had to try out Robert's new sonata today. We played it, the violinist and I, and felt especially moved by the most elegiac first movement, as well as by the lovely second one. Only the third movement, which is somewhat less charming and more headstrong, we just did not seem to get right.
In his autobiography, the aforementioned violinist Wieselowski remembers that at the rehearsal, only the finale I couldn't play to Schumann's satisfaction. We went through it 3 more times, but Schumann said that he had expected a different effect from the violin. I was unable to convey sufficiently the headstrong, gruff tone of the piece. Schumann allegedly said about his first violin sonata, I wrote it after I had gotten upset with a couple of people. Robert Schumann came to live and study with Wieck in 1830 and asked permission to marry Clara in 1837. Wieck objected, ridiculing his daughter's wish to throw herself away on a penniless composer, and did all he could to prevent the wedding before Clara's 21st birthday, when she would legally be able to marry Robert without her father's consent. Robert and Clara filed a lawsuit and won, but out of spite went ahead and married the day before her birthday, September 12, 1840. She was 21 and he 30 years old. Much has been written about the love affair of Robert and Clara Schumann. However, their history and their music perhaps convey their love best. That year of 1840 was the most prolific in Robert's life. He composed over 100 German Lieder or German songs, maybe as desperation for telling the world through his music how much he loved Clara. It was Clara who encouraged Robert to venture into new compositional territory and to explore writing for the orchestra as well as for chamber ensembles. Although Clara still did perform, teach, and compose, she put these responsibilities and passions behind her role as wife and mother. She and Robert had 7 children. Clara wrote in her diary,
I once believed that I possessed creative talent, but I have given up this idea. A woman must not desire to compose. There has never yet been one able to do it. Should I expect to be the one?
It translates as The Poet's Love, is a set of 16 German songs composed by Schumann and are to be performed together as a song cycle, with the music based on lyrics to poems written by German literary figure Henry Heine. These songs are interlinked to tell a story, tracing an emotional journey of a doomed love affair. Composed within the same year that Robert married Clara, that amazing year of 1840 when Schumann composed over 100 songs, there could be no question that Robert's own love affair with Clara was foremost on his mind and therefore foremost in his music. In real life, Robert's story ended happily. Such is not the case in the outcome of Dichterliebe. Our tenor performing tonight interprets the musical story of the young lover not only breaking off the romance with his supposed beloved, burying his love into the sea, but also committing suicide, painfully believing that his infatuation with love is all in his mind and not in reality at all. Robert Schumann struggled with mental illness throughout his entire life. He himself claimed to have 2 alter egos with the main members of this imaginary organization named Florestan, who is bold, impetuous, passionate, somewhat nervous, and Eusebius, who is reflective and dreamy. Scholars have questioned if his internal mental instability may have in some way ushered in his genius creativity. In addition to providing the world with a unique imprint within the classical realm, Schumann was also plagued by increasingly deep periods of depression. By the early 1850s, these worsened, and in 1854 he began to have auditory hallucinations and attempted suicide by jumping off a bridge into the Rhine River. Afraid that he might harm Clara, he asked to be taken to a mental institution where he died 2 years later. Tonight we pay homage to one of the greatest German composers, or musical poets if you will, Robert Schumann. In addition to the gifts he gave us as a music critic, it has been written that Schumann's attitude reflects a central ideology of the Romantic spirit, namely that music, or any artistic expression, is a direct outpouring of an artist's innermost feelings and emotions. And as we close tonight's program with Schumann's adored Träumerei, or Dreaming, take Schumann's thoughts with you as he once wrote, "Every age has a secret society of congenial spirits. Draw the circle tighter, you who belong to each other, that the truth of art may shine ever more clearly, spreading joy and blessings everywhere."